My name is Michelle, and 3 hours before my wedding, my mother pulled my fiancé aside to confess a secret child I never had. She didn't know he'd hired a private investigator 6 months earlier. The pie had already cleared every lie she was about to tell. So when my mother started her story, my fiancé just pulled out his phone and pressed record. You need to understand who my mother is and why a lie like this almost worked. Growing up, she controlled everything. My grades, my friends, my clothes, even the way I laughed. She said it was love. But love doesn't plant a secret in your fiancé's ear 3 hours before you walk down the aisle. The question isn't why she did it. The question is what happens when the person you trust most becomes the person you need to escape. That moment was 30 years in the making. And it started with a simple rule in our house: never question your mother. My mother's control started early. By the time I was 7, I knew her rules better than my times tables. Rule 1, never talk about our family outside the house. Rule 2, never contradict her in public. Rule 3, never ever question why she did the things she did. She said it was to protect us. But protection and imprisonment look exactly the same when the door is locked from the outside. I grew up in a 3-bedroom colonial in a town where everyone knew everyone. My father worked double shifts at the auto plant. He was quiet, tired, and absent in a way that felt permanent. My mother managed the house and managed us. She had a way of smiling at neighbors while her fingers dug into my shoulder hard enough to leave marks. I learned to read her moods the way sailors read clouds. A storm was always coming. High school was a negotiation. I could go to the library but not to friends' houses. I could join the debate team but not stay for the late practices. Every permission came with a condition, and every condition came with a surveillance. She checked my phone, my backpack, my journal. She called the school office to confirm I was in class. She knew the names of every teacher I had and every boy who looked at me twice. I wasn't a daughter, I was a project. When I was 17, I applied to college 300 miles away without telling her. I got in, and when I showed her the acceptance letter, she didn't yell, she laughed, a short, hollow laugh that scared me more than shouting ever could. "You really think you can leave?" she said. "You don't know how the world works." I went anyway. That was the first time I ever saw her cry. It looked like rage wearing sadness as a costume. College was a different planet. I lived in a dorm, ate cereal for dinner, stayed up until 3 in the morning talking about nothing. I was free, but freedom has a learning curve. I made mistakes. I trusted the wrong people. I failed a chemistry exam and cried in a stairwell. And every time I called home, my mother was there waiting, ready to remind me that I couldn't do it alone, ready to offer help with strings attached. I refused. That only made her work harder. I met Alex in my junior year. He was a transfer student, quiet, with steady eyes and a laugh that made people look up. We shared a table in the library during finals week. He asked me about my highlighters. No joke, highlighters. We talked for 5 hours straight. That night I called my mother to tell her I met someone. Her first question was, "What does his father do?" Her second was, "Is he Catholic?" Her third was a silence that said everything. Alex and I were together for 3 years before I brought him home. I'd been dreading it. My mother greeted him with a smile that didn't reach her eyes and a casserole that was too salty. She asked him about his job, his family, his religion. She asked him about his credit score. I wanted to crawl under the table. Alex answered everything calmly, politely, and never once looked at me for help. That night when we were alone, he said, "Your mother is very interested in me." I said, "That's not interest, that's interrogation." He said, "I know." When Alex proposed, I said yes before he finished the sentence. We planned the wedding for 18 months out, 18 months for my mother to digest the news, but she didn't digest it. She choked on it. Every call, every visit, every conversation turned into a critique. The venue was too small, the dress was too plain, the cake was too expensive. "He's not right for you, Michelle. He's hiding something. I think he's hiding something. I think you're blind." I told Alex about her concerns. He listened without interrupting, then asked one question. "Do you believe her?" I said no. He said, "Then let me handle it." What I didn't know was that Alex had started to notice things, little things. My mother asked him for his social security number to add him to the wedding insurance. She asked his employer's name, his supervisor's name, his last address. She was running her own background check. And when she didn't find anything, she started inventing things. Hear what Alex didn't tell me until later. 3 months before the wedding, he hired a private investigator, a licensed professional named Carla Ward, recommended by a lawyer at his firm. He told Carla what my mother had been saying, the accusations, the hints, the warnings. He told her the worst of it, that my mother had started saying I had a child from college. A secret child I gave up for adoption. A child that Alex deserved to know about before he married me. Carla started digging. She checked court records, birth records, hospital databases. She found absolutely nothing, no birth certificate belonging to me, no adoption filings, no closed records, no evidence that I had ever been pregnant. She pulled my college transcripts, my medical records, my financial history. Clean, clean, clean. She even tracked down my old roommate for a phone interview. The roommate laughed. Michelle, she couldn't keep a cactus alive, let alone a secret pregnancy. Carla filed a full report. Alex read it on the train home. He put it in a fireproof safe in our apartment. He told me about the pie 3 days before the wedding, not to hurt me, to protect me. He said, "Your mother is going to try something. I don't know when, I don't know how, but I know she will. And when she does, I want you to know that I already know the truth." I cried, not because I was upset, because someone had finally believed me without being asked to. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and cold. October 15th. I woke up in the bridal suite at the venue, a renovated barn with string lights and hay bales arranged like decorations. My mother was already there, perfect hair, perfect makeup, perfect smile. She handed me a cup of coffee. She said, I need to talk to Alex privately just for a minute. I said, why? She said, just a last minute thing, it's fine. I should have said no. I should have walked that coffee right back to the kitchen and told her to stay away from him. But 28 years of conditioning doesn't disappear with one conversation. I said, okay. She walked down the hallway toward the groom's dressing room. I stood at the window, watched the guests arriving, the caterers setting up tables. I didn't know she had already rehearsed this speech. I didn't know she had practiced it in the mirror that morning. And I definitely didn't know that Alex was waiting for her, phone in his pocket, recording app already open. Alex leaned against the window frame as my mother walked in. He didn't flinch, he just waited. My mother closed the door behind her, which was her first mistake. She wanted privacy. She was about to get it, recorded, time-stamped, and backed up to the cloud. She started with softness, a concerned smile, a hand on his arm. Alex, I need to tell you something before you marry my daughter. It's about Michelle. It's about something she never told you. She paused, let the silence press against him. Alex said nothing. He just watched. She took a breath. When Michelle was in college, she got pregnant. She didn't tell anyone. She gave the baby up for adoption. She never told you because she's ashamed. But I think you have a right to know. Alex kept his voice flat, almost bored. How do you know this? My mother hesitated. It was the first crack. She recovered quickly. I found papers in her room. I've known for years. I've been waiting for her to tell you herself. I couldn't watch you go into this marriage blind. Alex nodded slowly. He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out a manila envelope thick with documents. He placed it on the table between them. Then he said, I hired a private investigator 3 months ago. She's been looking into everything you've been saying about Michelle. She ran every database, interviewed every person who knew Michelle in college. There's no secret child. There's no adoption. There's no pregnancy. There's not even a birth certificate with Michelle's name attached to it. The report is in this envelope. It's 23 pages long. You're welcome to read it. My mother's face changed. It was like watching a dam crack in slow motion. The color drained from her cheeks, then flushed back red. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. She said, you investigated me? Alex said, I investigated the truth. You're just standing in the way. She started to speak, then stopped. Her hands trembled. She looked at the envelope like it was a snake. She backed toward the door. You don't understand. I did this for her. I've always done everything for her. She doesn't see it, but I'm the only one who has ever protected her. Alex picked up the phone from his pocket and held it up. The screen showed a red recording indicator. He said, I have everything you just said, every word. This recording will never see the light of day unless you force my hand. But here's what's going to happen. You're going to leave this room. You're going to go sit in the front row. You're going to smile while your daughter marries me. And after the wedding, you're going to get help. You're going to see a therapist. And if you ever try to destroy her again, I will release this recording to every person in your life. Do you understand? My mother didn't answer. She opened the door and walked out. Her heels clicked down the hallway faster than she usually walked. Alex closed the envelope and tucked it back into his pocket. He called me immediately. Come to the groom's room. Now. I found him leaning against the table, pale, hand steady. He played the recording for me. I listened to my mother's voice, rehearsed, precise, lie after lie after lie. I sat down. I didn't cry. I think I was too empty for that. I just kept replaying the last sentence of her confession. I did this for her, for me. She had decided that destroying my marriage was protecting me. I asked Alex if we should call off the wedding. He looked at me like I'd said something absurd. He said no. We go through with it. We smile, we eat the cake, we dance, and we never give her the satisfaction of knowing she almost won. So we did. The ceremony started an hour late because I needed time to fix my makeup and stop shaking. My mother sat in the front row, perfect smile, perfect posture. She hugged me before the processional. She whispered, I love you. I whispered back, I know what you did. Her smile didn't break, it just froze. The ceremony was beautiful. Alex held my hands so tightly that my rings left marks. When the officiant asked if anyone objected, I watched my mother. She didn't move. She just stared at Alex with an expression I couldn't read. Hate maybe, or respect, or both. We had the reception in the barn. My father gave a toast. My mother gave a toast. Hers was short, clipped, professional. She congratulated us on finding each other. She said she was proud. Every word tasted like glass in my mouth, but I smiled. Then the dance floor opened. The band played something fast. People were laughing. I pulled Alex aside between songs. I said, she's not done. He said, I know. She's going to try something else. We need to be ready. I didn't know how right I was. The recording stopped her from ruining the wedding, but it didn't stop her from rewriting the story. Over the next week, she started calling relatives. She told her sister that I had hired a private investigator to spy on her. She told her brother that Alex had threatened her. She told my grandmother that I was cutting her out of my life for no reason. She built a parallel universe where she was the victim and I was the ungrateful daughter. I heard the rumors through cousins, aunts, family, friends. The story changed depending on who she was talking to. To some, she said Alex was abusive. To others, she said I was mentally unstable. To the most sympathetic ears, she said she had only been trying to warn Alex about a past secret and I had overreacted. She never mentioned the secret child again, she just let the confusion do the work. I confronted her over the phone. I said, "Stop lying." She said, "I'm not lying, I'm protecting my reputation." I said, "Your reputation is built on sand." She said, "Then I'll build it again," and she hung up. I went low contact, then no contact. It lasted 18 months of silence, no birthday calls, no Christmas cards, no family gatherings. My father tried to mediate, but he was caught in the middle, torn between his wife and his daughter. He sent me a text once. It said, "I don't know what happened, I'm sorry." I never replied because I didn't know what to say. Instead, I started therapy. I spent months unraveling my mother's voice from my own. I learned that her control was never about love, it was about ownership. And the only way to break ownership was to stop being owned. Alex and I built a life. We moved to a different city. We bought a house with a garden. We had a daughter, Emma, born on a Tuesday morning in March. I held her against my chest and promised her two things. One, I would always believe her. Two, I would never become my mother. Then last year, my father called. He said my mother had been diagnosed with early-stage dementia. He said she was forgetting things, names, dates, the lies she had told. He said she had started asking about me, not with anger, but with confusion. He said, "I think she honestly doesn't remember what she did." I didn't know what to feel, relief, sorrow, guilt. I sat with Alex on the back porch after Emma went to bed. He said, "You need to decide how this story ends, not for her, for you." I went to see her. I walked into the memory care facility. She was sitting in a chair by the window looking at a bird feeder. She turned when I entered. She squinted. She said, "You look familiar." I said, "I'm your daughter." She said, "I don't have a daughter." I sat down next to her. I didn't argue, I just sat. The bird feeder swayed in the wind. A cardinal landed on it. She pointed. "Pretty," she said. I nodded. We watched the bird together for a long time. Eventually, she said, "I think I did something wrong. I can't remember what, but I feel heavy." I reached out and held her hand. She didn't pull away. I said, "It's okay. You don't have to remember. Some things don't need to be remembered. They just need to be released." I stayed for an hour. She smiled at me when I left. She said, "Thank you for what I asked." She said, "I don't know, for being kind." Driving home, I cried, not for the mother I lost to dementia, for the mother I never had in the first place. The disease erased the worst of her, but it also erased the possibility of a real apology. I would never hear her say she was sorry. I would never understand why she did what she did, and I had to make peace with that. I called Alex from the car. I said, "I'm coming home." He said, "I'll have dinner ready." I said, "I love you." He said, "I know." That was 6 months ago. My mother's condition is getting worse. She doesn't recognize me now, but I still visit, not for her, for me, to prove to myself that I can sit in a room with the person who tried to destroy me and feel nothing but compassion. That's not weakness, that's completion. And the recording Alex made, I still have it. I've never shared it. I don't need to. The truth doesn't need witnesses. It just needs to be true. I'm Michelle. I'm 31 years old. I have a husband who believed me before I believed myself. I have a daughter who will never know what it's like to be property. And I have a mother who in the end forgot everything except the weight she was carrying. Some stories don't end with a bang or a reconciliation. They end with a quiet afternoon, a bird feeder, and a hand held in silence. That's enough. Now I need to tell you what happened when I found the letters. The ones my mother buried in the backyard when I was 17, because that discovery changed everything I thought I knew about her. And it started with a shovel, a muddy afternoon, and a secret she took to her grave. The shovel hit something metal 6 inches down. I thought it was an old pipe. It was a lockbox, rusted, caked in mud, small enough to hold in 2 hands. I pried it open with a screwdriver. Inside were letters, dozens of them tied with rubber bands that crumbled when I touched them. The paper was yellow, the ink faded. They were addressed to my mother, and they were written by a man I'd never heard of. The first letter was dated 1989. My mother would have been 23. She wasn't married yet. She wasn't even engaged to my father. The letter was warm, intimate. It talked about a weekend they spent together, a hotel, a plan. The signature at the bottom was a single name, Daniel. I sat down in the mud and started reading. The letters spanned 3 years. Daniel wrote about wanting to marry her, about finding a house, about their future. And in the last letter, dated 1992, he wrote something that stopped my breath. "I know you're scared about the baby, but I'll be there. We'll figure it out together. I love you both." The baby, I was born in 1993. My parents got married in 1992, 6 months before I was born. I drove straight to my father's house. He was in the garage fixing a lawnmower. I handed him the lockbox. He opened it, saw the letters, and went pale. He sat down on an overturned bucket and didn't speak for a long time. Then he said, "I thought she burned those." I said, "Who is Daniel?" My father rubbed his face with both hands. He looked older than I'd ever seen him. He said, "Your mother was engaged to him before we met. He died, motorcycle accident, 6 months before you were born." The world tilted, so my real father. Daniel was your biological father. Yes, I knew when I married your mother she was pregnant. I didn't care. I loved her. I thought I could raise you as my own and that would be enough. But she never told me. She couldn't, it broke her. She never got over Daniel's death. She just buried it. And she buried those letters because she couldn't throw them away, but she couldn't look at them either. I sat down on the garage floor. The concrete was cold. I said, is that why she controlled everything? Because she lost him and couldn't lose anyone else. My father nodded. She was terrified of being abandoned, so she held on so tight she suffocated everyone she loved. I stayed on the floor for a long time. The letters sat between us like a ghost. I had spent my whole life thinking my mother was a monster. Now I learned she was a woman who had watched the love of her life die, then built a fortress of control to keep herself from ever feeling that pain again. It didn't excuse what she did, but it explained it. I asked my father if Daniel had any family. He said, an older sister. She lives in Oregon. I don't know if she's still alive. I found her. Her name was Patricia. She was 71. She answered the phone on the second ring. I said, my name is Michelle. I think you might be my aunt. Silence, then a long, shaky breath. She said, I've been waiting for this call for 31 years. We talked for 2 hours. She told me about Daniel. He was a carpenter, built furniture by hand. He had a laugh that filled rooms. He loved my mother desperately. She told me that my mother stopped talking to her after Daniel died, that my mother cut everyone off, that she disappeared into a new life and never looked back. Patricia said, your mother was never the same after Daniel died. She became someone hard. I think it was the only way she could survive. I told Patricia about the letters, about the lie at my wedding, about the dementia. She listened quietly, then she said, can I come meet you? She flew in 3 weeks later. I picked her up at the airport. She had Daniel's eyes, the same shade of green. I saw myself in her face for the first time. We went to a diner. She pulled out a photo album, pictures of Daniel as a boy, as a teenager, as a young man. He looked like me. The same jawline, the same hairline. I was looking at a stranger who was my father. Patricia told me that Daniel had tried to find my mother after the funeral. She had changed her number, moved, left no forwarding address. He never knew she was pregnant. He died thinking she had just walked away. I started crying, not for myself, for him, for the years he never got, for the daughter he never knew existed, for my mother who carried that weight alone until it crushed her. I visited my mother the next day. She was in her chair by the window. She didn't recognize me. I held her hand. I said, I know about Daniel. She turned. For a second, something flickered in her eyes, recognition. Pain, then it was gone. She said, he was kind. I said, I know. She said, I never told him about you. I was too afraid. I said, I know. She said, I'm sorry. It was the first apology I ever heard from her, and it came from a woman who didn't know her own name anymore, but I heard it, and I accepted it. I told Patricia about the apology. She said, it's a start. I said, it might be the only one she has left. I started therapy again, this time not to undo my mother's damage, but to understand it. My therapist said, your mother's controlling behavior was a trauma response. She lost the love of her life. She couldn't process that grief. So she tried to control every outcome to prevent ever feeling that pain again. The problem is that control became abuse. I asked, does that mean I should forgive her? My therapist said, forgiveness isn't about her, it's about you. You can understand someone's trauma and still hold them accountable for the harm they caused. Both things can be true. I carry both truths now. My mother was a victim of grief, and my mother was an architect of my suffering. I can hold both, and I can let go of the need to resolve the contradiction. Patricia and I stay in touch. She sends me pictures of Daniel's work, furniture that still exists in homes across the state, walnut tables, oak chairs, a rocking horse that someone's grandchild still rides. He left a legacy I never knew I had. I told Alex about all of it. He listened. He said, you're the most courageous person I know. I said, I don't feel courageous, I feel tired. He said, that's what courage looks like, being tired and still showing up. Yesterday, I took Emma to the park. She's 5 now. She asked me about my mother. I told her she was complicated. She loved me in a way that hurt sometimes, but I think she did her best with what she had. Emma nodded seriously. She said, was she nice? I thought about it. I said, she tried, she just didn't always know how. That's the best answer I have, because the letters changed everything. They didn't erase the pain, they transformed it. My mother wasn't a villain in a story. She was a woman who buried her heart in the backyard and built a wall around the wound. I still have the lockbox. I keep it in my closet. I don't open it often, but I know it's there. A reminder that every story has layers, and the ugliest lie sometimes hides the deepest truth. The day after I found the letters, I called Patricia again. She told me she had something else to send me, something Daniel left with her before he died. She said she never knew what to do with it. She had been waiting for the right person to give it to. The package arrived on a Thursday, small, padded envelope. Inside was a ring, a simple silver band with a tiny engraving on the inside, a date, March 12, 1992, 3 months before I was born, and a single word, forever. Patricia called me that evening. She said Daniel had the ring made for your mother. He was going to propose on her birthday. He never got the chance. I held the ring in my palm. It was cold and light. I slipped it onto my right ring finger. It fit perfectly. I wore it to visit my mother the next day. She was in her chair, staring at the same bird feeder. Her eyes drifted to my hand. She stared at the ring. She didn't speak, but she reached out and touched it with one finger. She traced the engraving. Then she pulled her hand back and closed her eyes. I sat with her until she fell asleep. My mother died 3 weeks later. Pneumonia, fast, peaceful. I was holding her hand when she took her last breath. She didn't wake up, she just stopped. And I was alone in a room with a woman who had been a stranger and a mother and a wound and a gift all tangled together. I arranged the funeral, small, quiet. My father sat in the front row. Patricia flew in again. Alex held Emma on his lap. The service was simple. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. The ring on my finger said everything. After the burial, my father handed me an envelope. He said, your mother asked me to give this to you. She wrote it years ago before the dementia got bad. She told me to hold it until the right time. I think that time is now. I opened it in the car. It was a letter, handwritten. The handwriting was shaky but clear. It said, Michelle, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I know I hurt you. I know I did things that can't be undone. I don't expect forgiveness, but I need you to know the truth. I was not always this person. I was someone else before Daniel died, someone softer, someone who believed in love. When he died, I buried that person with him. I built walls so high that I trapped myself inside. I pushed you away because I was terrified of losing you. I see now that I lost you anyway. I'm sorry I didn't have the courage to be the mother you deserved. I'm sorry I let my fear become your prison. I hope one day you can remember me not as the woman who hurt you, but as the woman who tried. Even if she failed, I love you. I always did. I just forgot how to show it. I folded the letter and put it in the lockbox next to Daniel's letters. I didn't cry. I was too full of grief and understanding and a strange, quiet peace. I told Emma about her grandmother. I said she was complicated, but she loved me. I said love sometimes looks wrong, and it's our job to recognize it even when it's imperfect. Emma nodded. She's 5. She understands more than I give her credit for. I started a new tradition. Every year on my mother's birthday, I light a candle. I sit with the lockbox. I read one letter from Daniel and one letter from my mother. I let myself feel all of it, the anger, the sadness, the loss, the love, and then I blow out the candle and go back to my life. This year, my mother's birthday fell on a Saturday. Emma asked if she could light the candle with me. I said yes. She held my hand while I struck the match. She said, is Grandma watching? I said, I don't know, maybe. She said, I hope she's happy now. I said, me too. The surprising detail came 2 months later. I was cleaning out my mother's house with my father. We found a box in the back of her closet. Inside were baby clothes, not mine. My father recognized them immediately. He said those were Daniel's. The ones he wore home from the hospital. Your mother kept them for over 30 years. She never told anyone. I held a tiny onesie, yellowed with age. It smelled like cedar. I realized my mother had been carrying Daniel with her entire life. In the only way she knew how, by hiding, by holding on, by never letting go, even when it destroyed her. I took the onesie, I placed it next to the letters. Now the lockbox holds 3 things: Daniel's letters, my mother's letter, and the first piece of clothing he ever wore. I don't know why that detail matters, but it does. It proves that my mother loved him until the end, in her broken, silent, buried way. She loved him, and that love was real even if it was hidden. I've stopped asking why she did what she did. I've stopped trying to untangle the knot of her grief and her control and her lies. Some knots don't untangle, they just get held, and that's okay. I am Michelle. I am 31 years old. I am a daughter, a wife, a mother, a woman who found her father in a locked box buried beneath a garden. I am the granddaughter of a carpenter who built furniture that still stands. I am the inheritor of a love story that ended too soon but left a ring that still fits. And I am no longer searching for closure. I am learning to carry it all. The wedding lie that almost destroyed me became the door I had to walk through to find the truth. My mother's cruelty was born from her grief. Her lies were a shield she never learned to lower, and I am the one who finally laid it down. The ring goes with Emma when she's older, along with the story, the whole story, because she deserves to know where she comes from, not just the pain, the love that survived. If you've stayed with me until now, you know this wasn't a story about a wedding lie. It was a story about inheritance. The kind we don't choose, the kind that gets passed down in lockboxes and buried letters, and the way a mother's grief becomes a daughter's silence. I think about the question Alex asked me the night he showed me the recording. He said, "What do you want to happen now?" I didn't have an answer then, I do now. I want the cycle to stop, not with vengeance, not with forgetting, with understanding. My mother spent 30 years running from a loss she couldn't face. She built a life of control because the one thing she couldn't control was the thing that mattered most. She left, she stayed, she loved a man who died and tried to love a daughter who reminded her of him every day. She failed, but she also left evidence. The letters, the ring, the onesie, the letter she wrote but was too afraid to mail. She left proof that underneath all the armor, she was still the woman who believed in forever. I don't tell this story to shame her. I tell it because I want you to know that the people who hurt us are rarely just villains. They are architects of their own wreckage, building walls to hold back floods that already drowned them, and we have a choice. We can build our own walls, or we can learn to live without them. I chose to live without walls. Some days that means I feel everything. The anger, the grief, the love, all of it, unfiltered, unprotected, it's terrifying, but it's also the only way I've found to be free. So here is what I can't tell you. I can't tell you if forgiveness is always possible. I can't tell you if my mother's love was enough, even in its broken form. I can't tell you if I'll ever fully untangle the knot of what she did and what was done to her, but I can tell you this. The truth, once found, never disappears. It waits, it stays. It gets buried in backyards and rusted lockboxes, and when you're ready, it rises. If this story stirred something in you, if it made you think about your own family, your own buried truths, or a relationship you're still trying to understand, I want to hear about it. Drop a comment, tell me what you would have done. Would you have opened the lockbox? Would you have worn the ring? Would you have visited your mother at the end? I read every single one. And if you want more stories like this, stories that go deeper than the surface, hit that subscribe button. The ring on my finger isn't just a reminder of where I came from. It's a reminder that the most important stories are the ones we choose to carry forward. Thank you for walking this path with me. I'll see you in the next one.